Welcome to Becoming the Ultimate Coach. I'm the Jock. This is the Doc. And today we're going to be talking about coaching different client types. And in the spirit of this being January and the New Year's, we're going to kick it off with All in Amy. So All in Amy is fun to train, but there's a few things you got to worry about when working with her. So she's going to bite off a little bit more than she can chew sometimes. But I want to start off with Dr. J. So when you're working with an All in Amy, what are the things that you need to think about as a coach, and what are ways to kind of help her in her long-term fitness journey?
Yeah. So the first thing I would suggest is think of her as highly compliant, meaning she's really excited about making these changes, and anything that you ask or you suggest, she's going to be like, absolutely, I can do that. But with that super compliant and over excitement about the changes, there's going to be a likelihood that she's a bit unrealistic. Yep. And so what happens is she can quickly overwhelm herself, or kind of start to edge on those extremes and take on just too much. And as you and I have talked about, we really want this to be a process and not just a destination for her health and fitness.
Yeah, and this is something as a younger coach, I always, I got super excited about, because they came in, they're like, okay, I'll do whatever you say. Exactly. And I'm like, great, I get to use all the knowledge that I have, all the training, all the nutrition, all the supplements, all these different things to get you the best results. And then I'd give them this plan, and they might follow it for a week or two, but then they start to fall off and almost kind of like even get discouraged, or sometimes even just disappear, because, they almost feel embarrassed because they said they were going to do one thing, and then they ended up didn't do it. So like, what are some strategies as coaches that we can take so that doesn't happen? Yeah.
What they want to do is know that they need to know that they're doing everything right, and everything in their minds, everything towards this outcome desired goal that they're working for. And what you need to share is break down and have a thing or two that they're working on each week. But highlight it as, if you can really work on doing this consistently, this is going to make a significant impact. In other words, it's going to build on other things. And so helping them think about trying to do things more consistently, and that we're building onto things and not give too many things. Because a lot of times what they'll say is like, I can do that. What else do you need me to do? What else do you do? And the biggest thing, as you know, is we want her to take the first steps or two and be consistent with them, and really develop those as habits so that we can build on to the next things. But again, make her excited about this is everything she needs to do this week or these 2 weeks.
Yeah, and this is something you really changed in like my approach with working with clients, in the sense of, someone comes in, they're like, okay, well, I'm just going to give up all my alcohol, and it'd be like a dry January, which is super common. And you're like, oh, that's great. That's going to help you get the results. But what we see, and what you really help kind of realize is, they might be like this all in January, then all out February. So if we can have this discussion with them of like, okay, we do want to see some results, and you are very motivated to do it right now. We still want to kind of go in with them, but at the same time understand like maybe we should just cut it back a little bit and see how far that takes us.
Yeah, and a couple of ways to have that conversation with them also might be is, what have you done before and how did that work? And you'll probably hear things like, oh, I did a Whole30 or whatever it is that was, or I did, Weight Watchers, or I did this and it was great, but then I just couldn't stick with it. Or they start talking about things where they feel bad about themselves, or I'm just not really good, or I can't stick with anything, or those types of things. And helping them understand that the reason what you're doing is different is because it's taking away some of those issues that she had before. The other thing to think about too, and you said at the beginning, like they're a lot of fun, like you get excited as a coach, but they're not going to also be great referral people, because what's going to happen is their friends and family that are watching are going to go like, holy wow, like she's asked to do all of this stuff, and then down the road may not see changes, and she might even cheerlead the heck out of your program or whatever initially, but the proof is in the pudding, as they say. And so be motivated on that realm too, and you and I have talked about this. You have to care about your business from a business side as well as results in both. And so that's also an important consideration.
And this is why I think it's also important. And one thing we talk about with the coaching is taking it off the floor. So you can sit down and have conversations, because if someone comes in and it's during the workout and you're like, okay, well, I'm going to go keto, I'm going to do intermittent fasting, and I'm going to do all these different things to lose the weight as fast as I can. And you're out there and there's a lot of people around, and you're trying to get the workout in. Like, it's hard to have that conversation of like, hey, like you brought up earlier, of like, how did this work in the past, or how's this going to fit in your life, or how are you going to do this long term? So having that dedicated time, sitting down with them and kind of mapping out like exactly where they want. How does this fit into their life, and like, do they see this happening long term? And also, like, how did we have success or failure with this in the past, so we can create this individual plan for them that worked best for them, not just something because they had a friend do it or they read it in a magazine or something like that.
Exactly. And it also creates a little bit of space to make it safe to share a few things. And I know it's really hard for any coach when you have a client and they're crying when you're talking to them or those things. But sometimes we have to recognize that the crying is just an emotional release. And so when you're telling them like, hey, this is going to be different, and this is how, and you don't have to do 18,000 things and all at once, that can feel like a relief. And some people will express that more with tears, but you want a safe spot for that to come out and then get excited about those next steps.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. And because I've had those conversations before and I've seen those tears, and it's so much of this emotion that we see come out with clients. It's just something going on outside of the gym, and they've just been built up. And this is like, they feel like there's safe space to do this, which is, it's nice that you creating that environment for them and letting them have that. So that way you can kind of get to the root cause of like what's holding them back and kind of the steps kind of going forward. So, you know, as coaches, we are going to want to give them all our information.
Yeah.
And this is my biggest warning for other coaches that I've talked to, of like, you got to hold some of that back. Give them a few small things, let them see success with that, let them see how they can actually see some weight drop, or they can feel better by just making some small changes. Because the problem with the all in is people get in this habit of like, they're all in and they're like, I have to be all in to lose. And then life gets in the way and life gets hard, so then they go back to what they went before, which is basically all out. And they don't learn anywhere in between, anywhere that they can see, well, if I'm just, 20 or 30% better than where I was before, I can see success there. So it's kind of really teaching that, I think, is one of the most important parts of this.
Yeah, working with people is not about showing off everything you know and showing that you have the biggest toolbox around.
And it's tough for me.
Yeah. Preaching to but it's really about that you understand which tools to use when and in what dosage, what moderation, what kind of intensity. And that's impressive. That's the long term. You don't want your medical doctor to pull out and go, look, I could do surgery on 15 parts of your body. Let's just knock it all out. Eventually, you're going to need some help with your liver. We'll just knock this out all now. Like, that's not an approach any of us want. We have to remember that when we're the source of information and skill set, we need to keep that in mind.
Awesome. So wrapping up here for All In Amy, as a coach, remember, just slowly work out of your toolbox, slowly kind of build those things. Like, make sure, you can get some fast results for people because they are more motivated, but you have to be super cautious at the time that they don't go this all in and then a month later they're all out, because really we're in this to help people long term. We're in this to have a business run long term. So to really have success with these people that are all in, we need to take those approaches. See you next time.